Mark.
And I'm Josh.
And this is Alter Ego Comics TV, episode number 127. We are from Alter Ego Comics in Lima, Ohio. And every week we read a giant stack of comics and come back and give our recommendations to you so that you read the good stuff. This week we're going to kick things off with Red Sonja number 1 from Dynamite Entertainment. This is written by Gail Simone with artwork by Walter Giovanni. And I was so pleasantly surprised by this book. It is far and away my pick of the week. I am not a Red Sonja fan. Much like Conan, you either are a fan or you're not a fan, I think. Red Sonja, the character, has been around for, I believe this is her 30th anniversary this year. So she's been around for a long time. She looks pretty good for her age. But the selling point for this, the reason I picked up this book is because Gail Simone is writing the character. And this may be the first time that a woman is writing the character of Red Sonja. She also has red hair, like Red Sonja does, so that's a plus. And she's done a great job with creator-owned stuff, with stuff over at DC, including Birds of Prey and Batgirl, and she's just a great creator that is fun to read. And she made this book interesting. You didn't need to know anything. You don't need to know anything about the character going in. And it's kind of Game of Thrones-esque. Maybe that's just because they're wearing armor and have swords. I actually don't know what... This isn't historically accurate, obviously, but because there are some people in armor, some people without armor. They use the word ain't. So there are modern colloquialisms, if that's the word, in this book. But it was really fun to read, and the artwork by Walter Giovanni was, again, a pleasant surprise. Dynamite has a tendency to pair A-list writers with, like, F-list artists. No offense to some of the artists over at Dynamite. But, I mean, you can have the best writer in the world, and if you don't have art that complements the writing, then it's just not going to work for me. I know it works for some people. Josh, for example, doesn't even look at the art most of the time. He just reads the words. But for me, they have to complement each other, and Giovanni's artwork definitely complements Simone's writing style in Red Sonja number 1. So a lot of excitement about this book in the interwebs and within the comics community, and deservedly so. You should absolutely check out Red Sonja number 1 this week.
And a new number 1 this week from Boom. We've got Daymen, written by Matt Gagnon? Gagnon? With art by Michael Allen Nelson. No? Is that,
They're
the co-writers? Oh, well, they should put that on the cover then. All right, art by Brian Stelfreeze. Stelfreeze. That's a good name.
He's a legend.
No, he's not, because I don't know who he is.
He hasn't worked in comics for 8 years, but Brian Stelfreeze did a lot of great stuff at DC Comics in the early 90s. I did a lot of Batman stuff.
I'd like to point out that you just said there was great stuff in the early 90s in comics.
There was some great stuff in the early 90s, but we haven't seen Brian Stelfreeze's artwork in a very long time, and he's doing interiors. First time he's done interiors in 8 years. Carry on.
It looked good, but I know jack about art, but I thought it was pretty. And this is a very cool story. We've got a world with vampires running about, but rather than focusing on the infernal masters of the night, we're focusing on the daymen, the people one specific dayman actually, but these are people that they employ to keep them safe during the daylight hours, to deal with their business interests, to make sure that they're in their coffins, they're in the darkness. And it was actually really cool. I like, there's been a plethora of vampire stuff the last couple of years, and I like that this focuses on a human or a near human. It's not really clear if they get any special powers out of being a daemon. It appears to just be a job, but he maybe have had some boosts, I don't know. But a very cool, kind of fun, Black Ops-y, I don't even know. It's just a really neat book about vampire servants in the daylight hours, and I enjoyed the heck out of it.
I did too. Next up for me is my continuing love of the comic Nova from Marvel Comics. We have a creative team change with this issue. Zeb Wells takes over as writer and Paco Medina as the artist. They're taking over from Jeff Loeb and Ed McGuinness, who launched the series. And I was a little concerned that they were going to drop the ball because I really enjoyed what Loeb and McGuinness did with the character. They basically created a teenage character that's accessible to actual teenagers. The content is not, inappropriate for someone 13 or 14 or even 12 years old to read. And they made this new guy, Sam Alexander, relatable, fun. We go on. It's like Marvel Comics were in the 1960s when characters like Spider-Man and the X-Men hit the scene, and they were teenagers and they were discovering their powers and figuring out how to get along in the world. And you see that a lot in this series called Nova. So anyway, Zeb Wells comes on board as writer and Medina as artist, and they basically pick up the baton and run with it, and it's a seamless transition. Medina's art style is very close to McGinnis, so it's not a jarring change there, and Zeb Wells definitely has the voices of the characters down, including Sam and his mother, and everybody in the Nova supporting team. So I hope that this book stays around. I know it should be selling better than it is. We've recommended it for the last 6 months, and hopefully you'll pick up the first trade when it comes out if you haven't been reading it, or find the single issues. But it's a fun ride. It's appropriate for your kids if they're of a certain age, or nephews or nieces or what have you, grandchildren. But you should give this to a kid to read and hopefully get them hooked on comics.
And next up, we've got Cable and X-Force number 11, written by Dennis Hopeless with art by Salvador LaRocca. Am I right this time?
I think so. I didn't read that one. So.
Oh, boo. Well, you should be reading it, and not that this is the only reason, but yesterday they announced the nominees for the Harveys, and Hopeless was nominated for Best New Talent. And he is. He just appeared out of nowhere writing like 3 or 4 of the Marvel Now books, and they were all really cool. I especially like this one because this is basically a Domino and Boom Boom story, or a Domino and... I don't actually know what her code name is. She used to be an X-Force. She used to be Boom Boom, and now she has a different name every time we see her. But it was a really cool kind of buddy comedy movie. You know, you see that they're conflicting personalities, but they're also friends, and it was just a fun kind of capery adventure that is nice in the middle of a book that is largely about, world-ending consequences, to have just kind of a fun, cool kickoff issue. So Hopeless has been knocking it out of the park on Cable and X-Force.
Finally, for me, is Justice League of America number 6. This is part 2 of Trinity War. Now, we didn't talk about part 1. I think we intended to last week and just forgot. But Justice League number 22 was the first part of Trinity War, and some crazy stuff happens. One hero kills another one. There's some, actually another hero may be dead as well, that's been in DC Comics for quite a while, both in the New 52 and prior to that. This issue is co-written by Jeff Johns and Jeff Lemire, with artwork by Doug Mahnke, and it's really good. I actually enjoyed this issue better than Justice League 22, and Justice League 22 is still pretty good. We get some great characterization, some great character moments here. The interaction between the two teams. So basically, in the first issue, the Justice League and the JLA square off in the middle of Kandak. Kandak? They're made-up Middle Eastern country that ends in a Q. Because Shazam goes there to return Black Adam's ashes. Spoiler alert, Black Adam is apparently dead now. And so the people of that country are going crazy because all of a sudden the heroes are invading their country and they think it's a U.S. invasion. So you have the Justice League that goes there to stop Shazam, and then you have the JLA that goes there to stop the JL. This is very confusing. And they, as super teams often do, they end up getting into it and have a dust-up, get it? Dust-up, Middle East, in the middle of the desert. And bad stuff happens. So anyway, we jump to this issue, and it's the fallout from that. But everybody's in one place. They all go back to Argus headquarters, where certain people are being treated for their injuries. There's some great dialogue. And Wonder Woman goes off in search to find some answers to things, and her search leads her to the Justice League Dark, which is the third part of Trinity War and comes out next week, I believe. So turning out to be a really solid event within the Justice League books over at DC Comics.
It was good. Trinity War is fun. Although I don't think the people of Kandak ever actually reacted at all. The Justice League shows up like, no, you're going to make an incident. Like, nobody ever actually complains. They're just policing the world because they're douchey. But,
the douchey league.
Next up, my last pick is actually 2 picks because I have told you about them both repeatedly. We've got FF and Fantastic Four by Matt Fraction, with art on FF by Joe Quiones by Joey Q. Oh no, Joey Q's someone else.
Yes.
And art on Fantastic Four by Mark Bagley. What can I say that I have not said month in and month out? FF especially was just really great this week. This replacement faux Fantastic Four league interacting in the world. I'm trying to explain how to talk about this without spoilers. essentially we're seeing a lot of interplay between the two titles. Some characters that were introduced in the previous the Fantastic Four arc are now showing up in FF in different times and places, and it's just really great. But the true shining moment of this issue is that we have Bentley 23 for a class assignment making a documentary about the Fantastic Four, or about the FF and members within it. And I got flashbacks to the Storyteller episode in season 7 of Buffy, where Jonathan makes his kind of video about nobody watched Buffy. It was just me. Okay, anyway. Bentley 23, evil genius, possible evil genius, clone of an evil genius, shooting a movie and making commentary about his classmates is just priceless and enjoyable as all get out. And for Fantastic Four number 10, all you need to know is the FF goes back to 1776. There are Skrulls and Ben Franklin. How have you not read it already?
So there you have it. Another week's worth of recommendations from the crew here at Alter Ego Comics. And we hope you check them out. Lots of good stuff this week, as usual. I know you may get tired of hearing me say that, and we're just in such a really great time for comics. The quality is so high, both from writing and artwork, and the complete package, from big company stuff at Marvel and DC to creator-owned stuff over at Image and IDW and Boom and all over the place. Boom! Sorry, I had to say that again. So hit your local comic book store this week, or come and see us if you're in the area, and we'll be happy to talk comics with you. If you have any comments, questions, criticisms, any of that fun stuff, put them in the comments below, and I'll just stop talking and see you next week.